Hi, I'm Christine. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am here to chat about 3 reads that I recently read that have been on my Kindle for over a year, and we're going to talk about if I thought they were worth it, all the things. Let's jump into it. So I will preface this with saying that for the past, I don't know, month and a half or so, I've been kind of in this reading slump where, not to say I'm not reading books and picking books up, I'm definitely still reading, but I'm not loving books that I'm reading. So even like some of my favorite authors and books that I was super excited for, even those aren't hitting right for me. So I have been kind of mixing it up, trying new to me authors. I've been doing rereads, and another thing that I decided to do is to jump into some of these reads that have been on my Kindle for over a year that I'm like, okay, I had these out for a reason. Let's finally get to them. So I thought it'd be fun to just kind of share my thoughts on here and talk about the 3 reads that I recently read that, like I said, were on my Kindle for over a year. So this video is going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to quickly run into a few things. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about is, first off, I will tell you what the book is about, kind of give you the vibe and kind of the premise of it. Then I will tell you my rating for the book, and then I'm going to tell you like my thoughts on the book of why I rated it a certain way. And then lastly, I will jump into, was it worth the wait? Should I have picked this up sooner? And also, am I going to read more from this author in the future if it is like a new to me author? So let's jump into all those things. So first up is Forever After All by Katerina Mora. So I've actually read quite a few books from this author already. This book in particular was just on my Kindle for the longest. I feel like it's one of the first ones that I grabbed out from her, and I just never got to it for some reason. This one is a standalone, and so I decided to, before, jump into her other books that were maybe part of a series and things like that. So I have already binged her Off Limits series. I also binged the Windsors series. I need to catch up on the last book in that one that just came out last month, but otherwise, like, I'm caught up on those 2 series from her. So this one I was just kind of waiting and kind of like leaving it there because I knew it was a standalone, and like if I wanted something from her that wasn't new, like I had this to fall back on. So this book is a marriage of convenience. It has a billionaire hero. It has age gap as well, with the hero being older than the heroine. And this one I knew going in, like, it was described with having all the drama, all the angst. I know a few people actually had said that it's like soap opera levelness of drama. So I was kind of here for it. Like the time that I jumped into it, I was ready for some drama and angst. So basically I described this book as a Cinderella story, where if Cinderella was out of options and had to resort to selling her body for money, but instead ends up in a marriage of convenience. So that's kind of the basic premise of this story. So this one we follow the heroine Elena. She is part of a wealthy family, and her mother ends up getting into a coma, and so her father decides after like a year, he really pushes for the hospital and the doctors to declare her brain dead so that he can go and remarry somebody else. So enter Elena's new stepmother, and kind of Elena is the only one who's pushing to take care of her mother still, even though she's in this coma in the hospital. She's wanting to, pay for her care, pay for her to keep being there, to be on life support, all of those things. So since Elena's dad and stepmom are kind of very anti-helping the mom, Elena still wants to help her mom, and so she kind of ends up fleeing her wealthy family and decides to kind of take care of her mom on her own. So the story kind of picks up where Elena has run out of money, and she's really needing kind of this like last resort, last help to kind of pay for her mom's care. So she ends up going to her father, asking him, kind of begging him for help, and him and her stepmom are like, no, we're not helping you. You've already left the family. Like, we disown you, kind of all of those things. So Elena is super desperate. She's out of money. She's out of options. She decides she's going to sell her body for this like last attempt to save her mother's life. So she ends up going to this club where, people can sell themselves off. And when she gets there, she runs into the hero, who is Alexander. And he's actually somebody that she's known in her past. Like, their kind of families were both wealthy, and they both kind of ran in the same circle. She was really good friends with his younger brother growing up. So like, he kind of knows who she is, and they run into one another, and he's like, excuse me, what are you doing? Like, no, I'm going to marry you, or offer up a marriage of convenience instead. So Alexander's from a wealthy family as well, and kind of around the same time, he has learned that for him to kind of inherit the family business, he needs to be married. And so he ends up offering up this marriage of convenience because he's like, it'll help you out, and it'll also help me out, and plus he's kind of pulled to her as well. He's also kind of wanting to marry her because of a little bit of revenge as well against her family. So basically, her estranged brother is engaged to Alexander's ex. So it has this whole like complicated vibe going on. All right, so that's the premise of the story. And this one I actually ended up giving it 3 stars. I felt like it started off super strong, but it kind of went downhill for me. Like, the first 2/3 of the book was solid. I was having a good time. It was very drama, but I was like here for it. But then the last third of the book really kind of lost me, and I was less interested in kind of even finishing the story. So this one, like I said, it just became over the top at the end. I didn't like some of the kind of plot points we were getting, or kind of just this like dragged out version of the story. I felt like it could have been wrapped up maybe a little quicker, maybe a little less of the drama. Like, it kind of just totally fell apart for me. So yeah, all of that said, it's not a favorite from this author for me, but like I said, I've read most of her books already, and so I know she can hit for me with some of her other books. So for the sake of holding on to this one for a year, I feel like I should have just maybe not gotten to it, but you know, it is what it is. Next up is Love and Hockey by Monty J. So this one was actually recommended to me, I want to say like a year ago, where I did like some hockey recommendations and somebody mentioned this one to me. And then it's actually been recommended to me a few more times on Instagram as well from like friends and other people who were reading it. And then I got a special edition of it as well last year. And so it kind of always was just kind of out there on my radar to get to. And so I finally decided to get to it. This one is a very angsty, very emotional. Basically in here, the hero and the heroine both play hockey, which I loved that. The heroine was raised by a single father. Her father is a hockey player. And so she has kind of been raised around hockey her entire life. She's super good at it. And it has a forbidden aspect as well because the hero actually plays hockey with her father. They're on the same team. He's friends with her father. He's been around in her life for a while. He is older than her, but only like by 8 years. So he's not the same age as her father, but it has that like forbidden aspect to it just because of like him knowing her father and things like that. So like I mentioned, this book is very emotional, very angsty. It also has this like very melodrama feel to it, which I mean that like in the best way, like not in a negative way at all. It also has very, very flowery writing. So if that's not your vibe, maybe it's not going to be for you. But this one, yeah, very emotional, very angsty. Basically in here, we start following the heroine from when she's 10 years old. That's the first time she meets the hero. He's 18 and he's the new rookie on her father's hockey team. And so he's playing with her father. And at the time she kind of just looks up to him / he becomes kind of a friend because like she's been raised around all these hockey players. So to her, that's where she fits in. She kind of banters with all of the guys and just is like one of them as well. Like she plays hockey, she gets along with them. That's all she knows. Each chapter in the book, we kind of follow a different age that the heroine and the hero are. And so we kind of see them aging up over time. Like I said, the first time they meet, she's 10, he's 18. And so over time we see them, her getting older. Like I think we cover 10, 12 years or something with her. And so we see a lot of time pass and kind of the evolution of their relationship change with the times as well. So that is kind of the basic vibe of the story. This one I actually ended up giving 4 stars to. There were moments in here that I felt like it felt a little dated, even though it wasn't written that long ago. It just felt kind of that more like melodramatic vibe that maybe you would have read books like this in high school or something like that. This though I did find out, I think it was the author's debut, like, and so since then they've written many books, but I believe this one was their debut from what I've seen online. This one as well, like I mentioned, that we see multiple different chapters and ages that the hero and the heroine are. What I thought was interesting though, like within each chapter, we still get flashbacks to previous times, previous ages they were. So I felt like that was just kind of a little strange to do because like we're already in these ages with them. Like why not just stay in that time of their life instead of having like flashbacks within flashbacks. So that was a little strange. Like I said, it's a very flowery writing where we're getting like a ton of inner thoughts, kind of inner monologues with the characters instead of actually having them dialogue and talk to each other to kind of move the story forward. So there is a lot of that as well. The prologue of this one actually sets up kind of the emotional angst of the story, which I really liked, and it really gets you into the vibe of what the book is going to be about. And basically I did like in here how we kind of explore how a certain character, a certain person could be the villain of somebody else's life, somebody's story, but to somebody else, that same person could be the hero or like a guardian angel of their life. And so kind of exploring the nuances of that I felt like was super interesting. And I liked the complexities of the characters that we get to see with that kind of exploration. And so seeing all that kind of dived into was a lot of fun. I know plenty of people don't want to read books where the hero has been a part of the heroine's life since she was very young, even though he was kind of young at the same time too. So like if that's not your jam, totally get that. Maybe don't read this one, but that is definitely kind of the forbidden aspect to the book with this one. Like he's been a part of her life since she was young. He's been a part of her father's life and he's kind of just like, you know, in her life, and it starts off when she is younger. So just know that. I did really enjoy how the hero and the heroine connect. There is so much hockey time in here. Like I loved the heroine plays hockey. She's super into it. The hero plays hockey as well. Like I said, her father plays hockey. There's a ton of hockey action, hockey time, hockey talk in this book. I felt like that was super strong. I'm somebody who likes the sports element to be in the books that I'm reading if they're sports romances. So this one definitely has that. The hero and the heroine, they also really connect on this kind of like emotional level as well because they both haven't had mothers as a part of their lives. And so they just connect. They have some things in common that are kind of discovered as the story goes on. And so yeah, this one was my first time reading from this author, and I'd probably read from them again because I did like this one. There were moments where I felt like this could have been kind of edited more, but like I said, it's also their debut. So, you know, take that for what it is. I know they have a ton of other books in their backlist, so I might check out more in the future, and I really did enjoy this one. So with Love and Hockey, there is a lot of content warnings for it. So there is childhood sexual abuse that is mentioned, alluded to. It starts off in the prologue. Alcoholism, drug addiction, grief, loss, abandonment, attempted suicide, a side character, and it's graphically on page. So just know that. We also see bipolar disorder of a side character and depression as well. So it is very heavy. It's very emotional. It's very angsty. So just, you know, take care with that and know those content warnings before you jump in. Then the last one that I got to is Passion and Venom by Shanora Williams. Again, this one has been on my Kindle, I think, for over a year, maybe going on 2 years now. And so this one is the first part of her Venom trilogy. So all I knew going into this one is it is a dark romance. It is mafia, kind of cartel related, and that a ton of people love this book. So that's kind of all I knew. I knew it was super dark, and I decided to get into it. So basically the story starts off with we're following the heroine. It's her wedding day, and she just got married. She's literally in the car on the way to their honeymoon spot / to the airport, and their car ends up being attacked, and her husband gets killed right in front of her. And it kind of goes from there with her being attacked and then abducted and kind of held captive for a week by somebody. And then we get into a lot of torture and violence, and then after a week of her being held in captivity, she's kind of allowed to live in the person who has kind of taken her captive's house. And so of course that ends up being the hero, and so it kind of goes from there. So this book I actually ended up giving it 3 stars to. I wasn't super impressed with it. There was a lot of issues I had with the book, but I was entertained and intrigued enough to continue on, so take that for what you will. So I did continue on. I have finished book 2. I did enjoy that one a little bit more, and book 3 I plan to get to soon as well. So yeah, I'm like invested enough in the story, even though I had some issues with it as well. It's just not like gonna be like a favorite for me. So this book is definitely a dark read. Just know that going in. There are a ton of content and trigger warnings for this book. So yeah, if you're not really a fan of darker themes, violence, gore, all of that on page, as well as dub-con, non-con, there are some rape scenes, there are starvation methods, there's captivity, like it gets very gritty and into things. This one I do feel like some of the violence and gore was there just to kind of have shock value, and I didn't feel like it added a whole lot to the story element, so that's why I kind of had an issue with some of that. Same with like some of the punishments that are doled out as well to the heroine. I didn't think that those were always super necessary, or they kind of didn't make sense for like the rest of the vibe of the story. There's something about the writing for this one that just feels like a little bit too much drama, maybe slightly cringe at times, and so that just kind of took me out of the story a lot. This is a shorter read as well. I think it's like under 300 pages. I want to say it's like around the 250 mark, and so things do kind of move rather quickly, which I'm somebody who always likes kind of more of time taken with building up to things instead of like having these kind of insta-lusty, insta-love vibes. So I didn't really like jive with that very well. But I mean, for the sake of it being a fast-paced read, it is that. So there's that as well. It just made it feel like a little unbelievable to me of how fast things were moving. But I mean, it's on KU, it's easy to consume, so there is that aspect as well. I will say I really appreciated the heroine, how she is very much a baddie and she will stand up to the hero, kind of fight for what she thinks she deserves or what others around her deserve. So there is that aspect to it. I really liked how we do kind of just go there, like we have some very villainous characters and they will just get into the violence, get into the things, get their hands dirty, especially the heroine. So I did like that aspect. Like I said, I have continued on in the series, so like it's entertaining enough. It just isn't a favorite for me. I've actually read, I think, a few more from this author. I know I read their One Mr. Kane series or something like that, and that one, again, the first book was strong and then it kind of like faltered out for me. So will I read from this author again? I mean, I am. Like, I'm currently going to read the 3rd book in this series, so there is that aspect to it. I just don't think that they're a favorite for me, or I haven't found a favorite book from them for me, but they're like entertaining enough. So take that as you will. All right, so those were the 3 recent reads that I had to get to that have been on my Kindle for over a year for some of these. So it kind of went okay, I guess. There's some in here that I feel like I was entertained enough to continue on, or one of these was a new to me author that I will read more from in the future. So yeah, not like a super high success of like no 5-star reads, but like they were decent enough. 3 stars, 4 stars, like not too bad. So let me know if you enjoyed this video, if I should do something similar again in the future, maybe reading some other books that have been on my Kindle for a long time, because I have even more that have been on my TBR or Kindle for years as well. Definitely let me know if you have ever done this as well, if you have read maybe some books that have been on your TBR or Kindle for years that you have been kind of waiting and savoring, and that you finally get to them and then they're favorites. Let me know if that's ever happened to you. So yeah, if you want to leave me an emoji instead in the comments to let me know that you watched this video, maybe leave me a hockey stick, since the book that I liked in this one was the hockey one. So yeah, a hockey stick. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I will see you in my next one.